Alright, so this is very interesting. I was commentated on by 3 commentators from the furry community. Now, they commentated on my Modern Company Brainwashing video, and I made a whole bunch of points while I was watching it. I didn't want to respond directly, like the whole pausing type of response, because the video was an hour long, which means my response would have been like 2 hours. So I just wrote down a script, and I'm going to be reading it off my computer, so if I'm facing this way the whole time, you'll know why. Now, there was a couple things I want to say. I might actually be deleting this video, because I do think a lot of the points they made were very strong and debunked a lot of mine. But, of course, I'm always a very civil person who can admit when I'm wrong, despite what they think, and what a lot of people think. So I'm still gonna make some comments on some of their points. Now, they got the impression that my entire video is trying to say that these things happen, and all of them are proven to be done by the government to make us all zombified. That's actually not what I was talking about. Yes, I did talk about the government, but that wasn't in relation to every single point in the video. The video was about how things are being done in our world to make people zombified, but not that the government is doing all of them. You know, I talked about phones, I talked about buildings, like architecture, I talked about logos, and I talked about just the government overall. But not all of those points were attached to the government. Some were and some weren't. Now, this is actually my fault, because I guess the way I spoke and the way I constructed the video gave the impression that I was blaming the government for every single thing in the video, but I wasn't. That was kind of more attached to just the generalization of people being brainwashed, but not specific to logos, or specific to architecture, or specific to cell phones. It was just, in general, we're becoming this way. And there were a few times in the video, even despite this, where they would take 2 points I made in the video, one could be at like 2 minutes into the video, one could be like 7 minutes into the video, and they fused 2 points of mine together to make a point that I didn't actually make. And they did this several times, but again, I guess it could just be my fault based on the way I constructed and the way I, you know, portrayed what I was trying to say in the video, because maybe I spoke in a weird way, or I wasn't organized, or something like that, which I can agree with. But they did fuse a lot of my points together, 2 points that were not together, but they put them together to make my point sound stupid. If you want to watch their video, go right ahead. If I delete this video, I might re-upload it to Matt's FTR deleted, or you can just watch it through their commentary. They don't, like, edit my video at all, which is good. So you'll be able to still see my video even if I delete it. And if you want to go to their video to get, to be specific on what I'm responding to, I did put timestamps in every single thing I'm going to say, so you know what part of their video to go to. So let's begin with all of my points. So these guys start off by calling me a conspiracy theorist. Well, actually, that's the whole reason they made the commentary to begin with. They actually made this just because of my company brainwashing video, even though I have videos on tons of other interesting topics. I also find it weird that they call me a conspiracy theorist, since there's so many more conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists they could cover. Yet they try to put me on a level that's more extreme than Alex Jones. It's not like I believe in Paul McCartney being dead or Sandy Hook being faked. I do, however, believe in 9/11 being planned, since that's a proven fact. Which it is, by the way. Most construction workers and engineers can tell you that the Twin Towers did fall like a controlled demolition, and 2 planes would not actually cause that, so it is a proven fact. But I'm willing to bet these guys don't believe that. It's also ironic because some people call me a normie sheeple, like the Mandela Effect community. And then there's these guys think I'm a tinfoil hat wearing Alex Jones impersonator. Very ironic. Kinda reminds me of how some people think I'm against Donald Trump while others call me a right-wing nut. Well, the truth is, none of these people did proper research on me, or my videos, but let's move on. Okay, so the first point in this video, around the 4-minute mark, is that they're trying to say that my hatred of modern society is comorbid with my conspiracy theories. Firstly, hating modern society is not bad, it's all based on facts. Now, they also didn't really understand what I meant when I said old versus new, because they actually did not watch my old versus new rant. They thought I was comparing 2018 to like the 1600s, and I wasn't. If you watch my old versus new rant, which by the way is 90% based on comparing durability and technology, but anyway, the only video of mine they watched is the Modern Company brainwashing video, which means they didn't know about my old versus new rant, they didn't know my views on literally anything else, which would have helped a lot with their points against me. Additionally, the only conspiracy you think I'm insane for making is the Modern Company brainwashing video. So you're trying to liken an entire worldview to one video you disagree with, which I think is very stupid of you to do. They then point out that I'm a hater of the government. Yes, these guys are actually people who don't think the government is corrupt. Around 5 minutes, they feel the need to pick apart my intro, as if any of that matters at all. He feels the need to attack the 1980s, even though there's nothing wrong with the 80s. The 80s is probably one of the best eras that there is. Like, life was so great in the 80s, and I wish I was born in 1967. That way I would have been becoming a teenager right when the 80s began. And actually, a lot of people believe the 80s is the best decade, and a lot of people have a lot of reason to believe so. Anyway, they also claim that all conspiracy nuts have intros like this. Keep in mind, I'm being commentated on by furries. The irony. Now, granted, I'm not against furries, but it's just ironic they're commentating on how I have like a conspiracy-style intro when these guys are part of that community. Anyway, around 5:40, they get on me for saying that religion is about brainwashing, a proven fact that they don't like. Additionally, they use religion and spirituality in the same sentence. Religion and spirituality are not the same thing. I don't even understand how they could think the same thing. Like, yes, there are some religions that have a spiritual belief. Like, for example, Buddhism is based on spiritual beliefs. However, it doesn't change the fact that religion as a whole, because most other religions aside from Buddhism, have beliefs that do not correlate with spirituality. If you ask any Buddhist, for example, spirituality as a whole is based on inner things, like inner peace and the mind and stuff like that. Whereas religion is based on set rules and condemning people to hell and all that crazy crap. They then follow this up by saying that religion is good because it helps people cope with difficulties in life, which is true. This is not debunking the fact that religion is bullshit and meant for control, though. They then say that they'd agree with me if I was talking about cults, even though cults and religion function the exact same way, which is a fact as well, by the way. At 6:20, they decide to ask some very easy-to-answer questions, and I'm going to go through all of them and answer. A. Do I define religion as a cult? Yes, because it is. B. Are all religions cults? No, Buddhism is not, since Buddhism is based more on spirituality. C. How can religion be defined as a cult? Okay, because both religions and cults control people, manipulate people, force them to follow rules, condemn them if they don't, and there's more, but I think I made my point with just those. D. Is my gripe with modern religion? My gripe is with all forms of religion that are fake, bullshit, based on lies, based on manipulation, encourage oppression, slavery, homophobia, stoning gays, etc. Moving on, around 7:50, they decide to respond to me saying that older stuff is more durable. Sadly, these fools didn't watch my old versus new rant, so I won't be debunking them here. All you need to do is watch that video. But yes, older stuff was built stronger and made to last longer. It's a fact. Ever heard of planned obsolescence? Look it up. Oh wait, they actually do mention planned obsolescence and how it's not new. Yeah, they mentioned planned obsolescence, that planned obsolescence is not a new concept. Well, the thing is, I didn't say that planned obsolescence is new, but it is more prominent now. Way more prominent. Just look at companies like Apple, which openly admitted that they intentionally designed their phones to break after a certain period of time. But that's, like, Apple admitted to it, but pretty much every phone company does the same thing. Around 8:50, they begin on the main point of the Modern Company brainwashing video. For those of you, like these guys, who didn't get that point, the point of the video is that logos changing to more boring appearances is to make the brain less stimulated. These guys spend a lot of time trying to misrepresent this simple point. Yes, the point of that video was to talk about and prove that many logos and architecture are made boring to kind of like de-stimulate a person's mind. And while I do still believe that this is happening, I don't believe it's the government that's actually doing it. See, they thought, from what I was saying, that the government has a conspiracy to make everything look boring to de-stimulate people's minds. Again, that's them fusing the 2 points together, or me just speaking in a poor way. No, I'm not saying that the government is specifically making things boring to de-stimulate minds. What I'm saying is that it's happening, and as a result, it's doing this to people's minds. I'm not saying the government actually pre-planned it this way. I'm just saying that this is what's happening with companies, and people are becoming very destimulated and less creative as a result of it. Around 11 minutes, they actually make some extremely strong points about how warm and cool colors actually didn't make a difference in the moods of people at work. And while I accept this argument to an extent, there's also studies that prove that people are more down and sluggish during gray, rainy days. They make some great points regarding color, right up to about 1350 when they decide to show screenshots of various colorful nursing homes, to counter my nursing home point. Sadly, the photos you showed are not of nursing homes, they're of retirement home. What's the difference, you ask? Well, retirement homes are meant for younger elderly people, such as those from age 60 to 75, whereas nursing homes are usually meant for people who are like mid to late 80s to death. And the reason why nursing homes are usually gray and dull is because they don't want people near death to feel stimulated. Around 15 minutes, he makes a remark on how I stated that old people die off faster when they're unstimulated and are in dull-looking nursing homes. Sadly, there is a lot of research to suggest that people who are depressed tend to die quicker. Essentially, there's a huge connection between your own emotions and your lifespan, which is true. Around 1620, they feel the need to comment on when I said, nursing homes generally don't want the residents to be a burden. He replies to me by saying that I'm insinuating we should tell elderly people they're a burden. No, I never said to tell them they're a burden. I'm merely pointing out that nursing homes with disruptive residents are a burden, and I've worked in one for over 5 years. I can tell you, objectionably, this is how the staff at nursing homes feel. Amazingly, he follows this up by saying I never worked in one, or had to deal with mental illness. Yes, they actually said this about me. This proves how little they researched me as a person or my other videos. Because, a little newsflash for the 3 commentators, my entire life is actually based on mental health, helping people with mental health, working in nursing homes, taking care of old people, and taking care of people in general. Sorry, don't get me wrong, I understand that you only watched my Modern Company brainwashing video. However, if you're going to make an hour-long commentary about someone as a person, and not just the video, you should really do more research outside of that one video. They then reiterate that I'm insinuating that the government is using gray-looking nursing homes to kill off old people. No, this is a complete twist of my words. What I said is that generally around the world, things, not just nursing homes, are meant to look dull and boring to de-stimulate people's minds. And not that it's the government planning it, just that in the world that's what we're doing. That's literally it. You're just taking my nursing home point and fusing it together. Although I suppose it could have been my word choice, and if that is the problem, I apologize. Around 21 minutes, they get in attempting to debunk my thoughts on modern cell phones, and how I say they're made to zombify people. Their first point is how I'm using the internet to make this video. Yes, but how else should I get these views out to the world? Second, they point out that I'm contributing to zombifying the world. Well, sadly, I am part of this generation. Yes, I use a cell phone, but I also acknowledge how they've destroyed human connection, not communication, how people barely want to talk to each other anymore face-to-face, and so on. He then follows it up by saying that if it wasn't for iPhones, it was flip phones. How is this a valid point? Yes, flip phones are cell phones, but they weren't used to engulf your life. They were meant just for phone calls. When people only had flip phones, people were still willing to sit with their friends at a restaurant and talk to each other. Now, they try to counter by saying, oh, what are you talking about? Many people at restaurants talk to each other. What kind of place do you live in? But a lot of people also don't. There's a lot of people, yes, who sit around restaurants talking to their friends, which they should be doing. But there's also a lot of families who just sit around the table like this the whole time. It's true, whether if you want to accept it or not. Go to restaurants and you'll see it yourself. There's a huge difference between distraction and literally making something your life. I also never stated that cell phones specifically zombifying people was a government conspiracy. Stop fusing points. The cell phone portion was about the same thing, but not caused by the government, but rather caused by companies and consumerism. Around 23 minutes, they feel the need to go into me calling modern architecture just really boring boxes, and point out a few modern buildings that do have creative architecture. I think this point is my fault, based on my poor delivery. Yes, there are some nice looking buildings today, but I'm talking about architecture as a whole, not just specific buildings. We're talking about all architecture, from statues, buildings, homes, malls, etc. They continue to show various buildings, but I only feel the need to comment on one. At about 24:30, they show a building from 1880. Okay, watching my old versus new rant would have been a great idea, so you actually know what old and modern years I'm comparing. 1880 is old. Now, of course, there are buildings from the friggin' 1600s and before. It doesn't change the fact, though, that 1880 is still old, and I'm talking about those years and even before. Architecture was beautiful. Now, they made a lot of great points to essentially debunk what I said about architecture. And guys, I do agree with you. I do agree that your points were very strong, and you kind of, for the most part, did debunk what I said. At one point, they basically admitted that buildings are more boring now. They actually admit to this, and the reason they gave is because by making buildings look more boring and simple, it's essentially a way to save on money, building time, and resources. And I agree with you. Doesn't change the fact, though, that buildings do look more boring now. Sure, there's reasons for it, like you just said about resources and money, but it doesn't change the fact that they do look more boring. And there are some buildings today that look nice. I just think architecture in general, older, is much nicer looking. So for the next long part of the video, they go into discrediting a lot of my points about logos and their modern meaning. In regards to making people more zombified, boring, and brainwashed, and honestly, I agree with pretty much everything they said. Although I'll never agree that the government is not trying to brainwash the masses, primarily through the media and religion, by the way, I will agree that I was very long-winded in this particular video regarding logos and architecture. Yes, I agree, I was wrong. However, at 42:25, he says that our world is not the giver. And I like this reference because he understood what I was trying to say. Although I do agree I was wrong regarding architecture and logos, I do strongly believe that our world will become like the giver. And it is already happening to an extent. I stand by that. And there's lots of reason to believe that. Yes, I do believe that our world is starting to look like, and people are starting to act like, and our world is basically moving towards a state like the giver. And although I also agree that my points on architecture and logos may have been long-winded, it doesn't change the fact that they are very boring and uncreative these days. Is it a government conspiracy to make people more zombified just by looking at a boring logo? No, it's not. I was wrong. But it doesn't change the fact that logos and stuff like that do look very boring and uncreative now, and it is to an extent making our world look like something out of The Giver, where everything looks the same, essentially. And I do believe 100% that will happen, and it probably will. Around 43:40, they try to counter me saying people are stupid by pointing out that people are graduating high school at higher rates than ever before. This one is simple to debunk. The curriculum at school now is easier than it has ever been. And don't forget, we also live in the SJW era, where stupid parents will complain to the school about their kids getting low grades, and kids being allowed to pass just because the school got blamed and a parent complained. This happens a lot, and that's also been a proven fact as well. You know, there's a lot of stats that are just biased. You know, think of like the wage gap statistic, for example. All it says is that men make more money. It doesn't take in factors. Just like the thing about school. Just because people are graduating more, you have to look at the factors. Why are people graduating more? Are people smarter? Fuck no. It's because curriculum has changed to be easier. Test scores were also changed to be easier. People, you know, back like when we were kids, we weren't allowed to cheat, but it's more common today for kids to just go on their computer or use cheat sheets. That's why they're graduating faster and easier and quicker, is because it's simply easier. The curriculum has been made easier because parents have complained, or I guess years ago kids were failing too much, so they had to make it easier on them. Go and ask your parents what school was like when they were a kid. Do you have any idea how strict school was back in 1950? Holy fuck. They would whip you if you got a question wrong and put the dunce cap on you. That shit doesn't happen today. Why? Because it's easier. Sometimes you can't just look at a study, you have to look at the reasons behind it. Anyway, all in all, I actually liked your video. I think you guys did a good job, and I think you did, for the most part, debunk a lot of my points. However, there's a lot of points I still stand by. Now, you talk about me needing to do research. I agree with you. But I also think that if you're going to make a video directed at me as a person and not just the video, you should probably watch more than just that one video. I'm not arrogant, and I don't always think I'm right. I'm sitting here agreeing with you that I think your commentary was for the most part right, and I was the one who was wrong. I am not the kind of person you think I am. Just because I may seem like forceful and arrogant in videos does not mean I'm actually like that in real life, because I'm not. I think your video is good, and I might delete my video, but as I said, if you want to still watch it, you can either see my video in their commentary, or you can see it on my Matt's FTR deleted channel. Take care.